Please work. All right. I think it's working. I just gave a whole monologue. I just did a whole monologue about this. And then I realized that for some reason the stream that I started was unlisted, meaning that no one was seeing it. But it's all good. And I want to see if I get this green light. I get the green light when the connection is good, I guess. It's only not been good like one other time. But now I have the red light right now. Let's just roll with it for a minute and see how it goes. I'm not going to get stressed out about it. I'm a very relaxed guy. The persona I project to you is real. I'm a very relaxed person. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't work this time, I'll call the internet company. But you know, let's see. Got to post that link on Twitter. I'm gonna post that link right now. I always write the tweet and then it's too long, and I have to go back and shorten it. Okay, I'm gonna post a picture. I think we got the green light, but honestly, I guess we'll just hang for a second, and if the internet's too slow, then the internet's too slow. That's the story. I don't think that's gonna happen. It's only happened like 2 times over the last year. It seems like it would be unlikely to happen twice in a row. If I was a math guy, maybe I could plug the exact number of those odds. But I'm not. But I'm not. Yo, what up? Nice. RKD's got food prepped. That means the internet has to work. Nice. I know. Okay, cool. The internet should work. I mean, I was just saying, I don't know if you guys just got here or whatever, but it's only not worked like 2 or 3 times the whole time I've been doing this. So if it doesn't work again, I'll call the internet company, but I think it's fine. Otherwise, what's going on? Starting late, but you know, whatever. It's been a freaking crazy week, honestly. The stream's current bitrate, I'm getting a new thing, is higher than the recommended bitrate. I'm streaming too high def. That's interesting. Should I turn it down? It says recommend streaming at 4,500. I'm at 10,000 right now. Too high def. Too much, they said. YouTube said, whoa. I don't know what to do with all these bits. What's going on though, guys? How's it going? It's really funny because like the whole season 3 up until last week, I feel like I had the tech super professional, and then last week it was just like game over. But I'm stoked to keep it a little casual, honestly, this time. I got the link posted. Cool. Let's hang for a minute. We'll see if people come, and then we'll just then we'll do this thing. How's it going with you guys though? I've had a really crazy week, honestly, over here. It's been a very atypical week in the studio. Normally I can just roll in and let's see, make sure my hands are working. Cool. Normally I can just roll in and do my thing for like hours and hours and hours on end, and it's all good. But this week I got some like people at my house, let's say. I just noticed there's a little, oh cool, I fixed it. There's a little like edge over on the edge of the screen that you can see my desktop on. I'm gonna fix that right now. I know I'm not being very interesting right now. I just want to make sure all the tech is going on, because like I said, I did just kind of like roll in. Yeah, we'll hang for a few minutes. We'll start at 7:10. So yeah, what's going on with me? Basically, it's been interesting because yeah, my dog. So this is a pre-show where we talk about random stuff in case you've never been here before. Well, my dog is like hyper reactive, and I didn't know what that means until I had a. Oh yeah, or increase the volume. I didn't know what that meant until I had a reactive dog, and now I have one. So what that means is that she reacts to stuff. Let me know if it's still too quiet. I was also kind of like whispering to myself while moving some stuff around. But yeah, so basically my dog will like freak out at anything, any stimuli of other people that aren't me and my wife. So we have this friend staying with us, and it's really tight because it's kind of like a perfect opportunity to get her to like power through it. But it also means that I have to like be with the dog and like not with like literally physically with, you know, I'm down for that, obviously. Let me know if it's still too quiet, by the way. But like I have to like be mentally hooked up with the dog all the time. So it's interesting because I didn't want to like blow up my spot, but I am going to work on I guess you could say a book or something. I'm writing some stuff about like the sort of spiritual aspect of like owning a dog, which I thought would be cool. But it's interesting because yeah, like I have to have my brain like hooked up with the circuitry of the dog like 24/7 all the time. Not that I'm complaining. I mean, I love my dog. Actually, to be honest with you, I kind of like it. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I went to this party. I never go to parties either, but I went to this party. And, like I'm standing there talking to someone, and I felt like I had the dog next to me still. Like I'm talking to this person, but part of my brain, part of my mental circuitry was like still hooked up like in the dog world. And I actually drew this diagram for this, like I guess it's like a theoretical book. I don't know if it's going to end up being a book or not, but you know, where like the circuits from like the dog's brain are like hooked up into my brain and like they go together. And like when I'm with it all the time, I really feel that like animal circuitry going on. And it's really interesting, honestly. It really dovetails with like a lot of my work because, you know, you can like feel this connection that's like non-verbal, and you share this like relationship to external stimuli that's totally non-verbal. So it's been pretty cool. Hold on, I'm just gonna close my closet so it'll be a little quieter for other people, not us. But yeah, so it's been hard to like sit down and work for like hours because, you know, like I like feel bad for her, you know, because she's like stressed out, you know, and she's making like whimpering noises, you know. So it's been really interesting. That's been like the main interesting thing for my last week. I've been cracking out on like crypto stuff also, like cryptocurrency stuff. That's basically it. I got some projects going on I've been posting about on Patreon, but that's really the trifecta of my life right now. And I kind of wrapped up the cryptocurrency thing. Not that I like wrapped it up like I don't care anymore, but I kind of like just locked in like my situation. Now I'm not looking at it like every moment of every day. So yeah, it's been a pretty interesting time. I got so into it. You know, it's also interesting. Like we talk about this here, but like everything kind of gets incorporated into this like spiritual view of life. You know, we've talked about the difference between like the private sort of, you know, renouncing the world, or really, nothing wrong with renouncing the world, but like seeing the world as bad, you know, and trying to escape the world in that way. View of life versus like the Christian view of life or other like theological views of life, which are more about integrating the world with this like divinized view of life. And I just feel like that ring of like seeing how, you know, the reality of like God's existence affects all these different unexpected aspects of life has just been like expanding and expanding. And it kind of expanded into like the money field for me, I guess, like maybe a month or two ago. Not that I got money because I don't have any. But just thinking about it and like, oh yeah, there's this aspect of like society, and you know, society isn't like a bad thing inherently because X, Y, and Z. And like, I was thinking about that, and I looked up a few saints that are related to money, and I talked about this a little bit on Patreon, but it's just really interesting to me, that idea of like, oh yeah, like this aspect of society isn't something that I need to like view as like as like I have to like resist it. You know, it's just part of life basically. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then with the crypto stuff, I was like, man, this is another way in which like the digital and tech situation is infusing with this aspect of life that has a strange relationship to spirituality in a way. And I was like, this is some interesting stuff, man. I actually ordered this book. I literally sometimes I just Google topics like X. We'll start in like 1 minute. We'll start at 7:12. Sometimes I just search to see like, oh, I wonder if anyone else is looking at the overlap between these topics. So I was searching for like theology and money, or like theology and finance. And most of it was a critique of like prosperity gospel. I don't know if you guys know about that stuff. Most of it was a critique of that. We can talk about that if people don't know about it. But I did find one guy who wrote a book called Faith and Credit, and then the other book is called Theology and Finance. So I ordered both of those. I don't know if I'll actually make my way through them, but I was like, yeah, I feel like this is just the vibe right now. Sometimes I puncture into this space where I can feel that in my head. It's like that meme where the one puzzle piece is missing. You know, the guy's holding one puzzle piece, and then in his head, a puzzle piece is missing. And I feel like I'm like, oh, I just need something to just fit in this little gap right here. And then I'm like, oh, I spent $50 on books, and I don't have $50, but that's life. That's life. Okay, I'm going to pull the trigger, man. Let's do this. I'm amped. Let's get this going right now. You know the intro says season 2, but you know deep down it's season 3. Let's do this. Oh my god, I clicked the wrong button. It's boomer tech hour right now. Oh my god, I clicked the wrong button twice. My veneer of professionalness has been shattered. Oh my god, you know what I did? Wow, I freaking moved everything off my desktop. Which means that the intro is not where it should be. The intro file is not where it should be. So we are just going to... I just moved it back. Let's see. If this is your first time here, normally it goes a lot more smoothly. Oh my god. Okay, I'm just going to freaking boomer tech this right now. Hold up 1 second. Hold up 1 second. If it's your first time here, normally it's not. It actually hasn't been like this for a really long time. But hold on 1 second. Cool. I legit had to just capture my desktop and play the intro, but it's all good, man. It's that kind of week. It's that kind of week where things just don't stack up exactly. Dominoes falling all around you. But it's all good, man. I can't really complain, honestly. How you guys doing? So let's do this. I'm gonna grab. We just did the pre-show. Normally, I feel like I have to do kind of an intro, but I'm not going to because we just did that. And in case you've never been here before, chat source symbology edition. So basically that means I'm going to be looking at the chat to get ideas for what we're going to paint. So people say things like a cow and then put that in the picture, except we did a cow last time, so don't say that. So that means that in a minute I'm going to be looking at the chat, and if you want me to see it, you have to put @OwenCyclops like Ren S just did. Otherwise, I'm not going to see it. And that's basically the deal. Otherwise, I will start. So normally I feel like I have to get the ball rolling with a little something, you know, because people are thinking of ideas, which you want to do right now. You want to start thinking of stuff now, because in a second, if I look and there's nothing there, I'm just gonna wing it. Honestly, I'm just gonna go off the rails. But I do have something kind of cool over here. So I have the painting palette. So someone mentioned, maybe it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, that it's been about a year since we've been doing the show. It's kind of cool, actually. It's pretty cool. And I started the show because I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be cool. I thought it was a way for me to experiment with doing video stuff. But I have enjoyed having the show as part of the arsenal for the studio, because I've mentioned this every now and then, but everything else I have to be like crazy obsessed with making it perfect. You know, like the posters I got over here. I got a stack of prints over here. I got a stack of shirts over here. I got, you know, everything going on. I got this wall full of you know, pinned up names and writing and all this stuff on my wall. It's kind of like one of those serial killer movies, actually. And I have to obsess about making it all perfect. But for the show, I don't. I can kind of just roll in and do whatever. And it's kind of nice because I'm like, oh, my you know, validity, my persona, my whatever it is doesn't rest on this. It's something fun that I do with you guys. So I do appreciate people coming through. And I mentioned it before, but I've never checked how many people are watching during the show because I don't care. Just a few of you guys here is enough for me. So if you've been here for a while, you know that I have the palette that I have, and we've talked about it quite a bit, and it's kind of like a classical painting palette that I punched up a little bit. But I've been trying to mix it up a little bit, and it's really hard for me to step out of that palette that I have because it's a totally cohesive color system. So I have my palette where I have the cool red and the warm red and the cool yellow and the warm yellow and the cool green and the warm green and the different blues and the different browns. So you can imagine, you know, I go to the art store and I'm looking at the wall of paint, and it's kind of hard for me to break out of that. Like, what do I do? What would I do? Get a totally different palette and just pick worse colors? Like, I chose each of those colors to function within the palette. So you can imagine, like I said, I've gone to the art store and I'm like, I really want to try something different, but what would that even be? And then I had this idea where, because I've been thinking a lot about tech and primitive tech, and how tech, does have this infusion with like the spiritual life in a way, even if it's kind of undesirable, even if we don't want it to be that way. And you can see this chart right here. And you can see this box right here. I saw this little box at the store, and they make these painting sets that are cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and white. So you might recognize cyan, magenta, yellow from printing stuff. Your printer has cyan, magenta, and yellow. Maybe it's obvious. I don't know if people know about color theory and stuff, but this is sort of like the ideal physical manifestation of the three primary colors. Most people know the three primary colors are red, blue, and yellow, but if you just have red, blue, and yellow sitting on a palette, you actually can't mix all the colors, because maybe the red is like kind of orangey, and then you try and mix purple, it doesn't really work, and then maybe the blue is a little green, so you try and mix purple, it doesn't really work. So that's why your printer has cyan, magenta, and yellow. It's an ideal manifestation of the three primary colors, where you can just turn around the wheel of color. It won't cancel each other out. You can mix any color with it. And you have black to darken it. And then maybe this is obvious too. Some people have never thought about this, but your printer doesn't have white ink. It uses the white of the paper as opacity. So kind of obvious, but also some people have never thought about it. When your printer gets the data for white or lightness, it interprets that as nothing and uses the whiteness of the paper. Some people are like, duh, and some people are like, well, I never thought about that. Decide which side of the aisle you're on. But I got this set of paints, and I thought it would be really cool because this is so counterintuitive for the way that I mix color. The way that I mix color and the way that I've always done classical painting, it's literally the total opposite of this. I've used cyan, magenta, yellow, maybe once or twice in the past, but not really. Because the way that I work doing color, I used to train as an oil painter. I did a lot of like really classical oil painting. Not a lot, that's kind of overly flexing, but I did classical oil painting and classical drawing and painting and stuff like that. And in there, and even non-classical painting, maybe you can think about like the Impressionists or something like that, it's all about the temperature of the colors. And the temperature, which if you've watched the show for a while, that's something I really want you to take away. Go to a museum, sound really smart, talk about the temperature of the colors. How warm or cool something is such a big factor in the picture being successful. You go to a painting and maybe it's a girl, maybe it's a naked girl, maybe you're in the 1800s in Paris or something, or maybe it's a cool Monet water lilies. So those are not classical paintings, in case people don't know about painting terminology. But you're really responding partially to the temperature. Those gardens feel really cool. You can feel the coolness of the water. And then if there's a girl there, maybe there's a shadow on her face and you can feel the coolness of that shadow. Or maybe she's, standing there and you're looking at her cheeks and the painter has used vermilion or some cadmium red paint that has that warmth of human flesh. And you can feel the warmth underneath the flesh. You can literally feel it. Like when you're painting with like a classical oil painting palette, when you mix let's say just for the purpose of discussion, like a European person's skin color, you can mix it up and it's this kind of pasty white, and then it's too yellow, and then it's too white, and then it's almost orange. You really can't get it. But then when you take the vermilion, it's literally this warm blood color, and you mix it in, you can see it turn into like warm flesh right in front of your eyes. So that temperature is like a really big factor in how I work and use paint and think about color in general. But with the cyan, magenta, yellow, you don't get that. So I think it'll be interesting for us to jump in. I think maybe we'll use it, and if it kind of sucks, we'll change it up. But I thought it would be cool because instead of thinking in that dimension of temperature colors, it's just the wheel. So when I'm poking over to the red, it's not really like I have access to the cool red and the warm red. It's just the hues. I'm just sliding around almost like Photoshop within the color sliders. So I thought we'd mix it up. Why not? Why not change it up one time? You can imagine it gets kind of, on the one hand, it's nice because it's like you're a musician. You start to know your instrument more and more. You know what the instrument's going to do when you touch this string here on the fretboard. You get really, really intimately acquainted with it, but sometimes you want to change it up. Sometimes you want to mix it up a little bit. So that's what we're going to do right now. I actually don't know why this chart is mostly in Japanese, but it is really aesthetic. I might hang this up. It's almost like a vaporwave color theory chart. Holbein is like a Dutch company or something, right? So I don't know why it's in Japanese, but whatever. Whatever. And as predicted, I knew it was going to happen. I'm not complaining. I knew it was going to happen, but no one has suggested anything yet, which means that I'm alone riding the wave of potential symbolism, and I just so happen to have this book sitting right here, and we have done totally random number generated. I did have a random number generator once, and we picked just spots in these books. And if you were there that time, basically all the symbolism that came up was about, sorry if you have kids right now, just block out the next word. It was all about vaginas and stuff. It was kind of weird. Like, we literally just kept getting female sexual symbolism, like back to back to back. So I abandoned the random number generator because clearly it was possessed in some way. But I'm going to open it up. I'll let people post some stuff in. But maybe we'll just see. This book's kind of interesting because it has themes more so than particular items. So let's just jump in right now. I'm also thinking, the other thing I'll say before we get started, because I'm kind of thinking about this for the picture also, where I am, spring is like poking through the winter. It's that part of the year where it's definitely still winter, but you're getting like a little sprout poking through the ice, poking through. You can feel the winter receding. You can feel a little spring over the horizon. Let me know if it's the same thing where you are, actually. I'm kind of curious. But, let's see if spring is in here, actually. That would be interesting. Let's poke in here. And let me know how you guys are doing. I enjoy the more casual show, honestly. I do have a lot I want to talk about, but it's kind of nice. The way we've reformatted the show, I've been like, here's my prepared remarks. Now let's do the picture as fast as possible. Okay, so we gotta get to P. SP. Sphinx, that's really tight. I've been saying that my dog looks kind of like a sphinx recently. We did a lot of Egyptian stuff recently. By the way, if you were hanging on to the Egyptian stuff, we'll hit the Egyptian Book of the Dead another time. We were going to do it last week, but it didn't happen. Spring is not in here. Every time I've gone to look up a particular thing in this book, it's not here. Okay, but we got some good suggestions. So let's just roll before suggesting. Got my brush. Let's see. First suggestion is gnome. That's pretty atypical, so yeah, let's do it. Gnome somehow has a little bit of a spring vibe going on. Maybe it's because it's nature-y. But we'll start out with the gnome. I don't think I've painted a gnome. We did like that weird troll-y kind of... Was spring in there? Someone said you passed spring. Was it actually in there? Let's see really quick. We'll pull some more suggestions just really quick. Because I really wanted it to be in here. Perhaps in my haste. S-E-S-H-S-I-O-P. I'm here at P. Q. No, it's not here. S, P. Am I being stupid? There's O. Q, R. Oh, it is here. Oh, nice. Spring personified. See flora and 4 seasons. Okay, let's go to 4 seasons really quick. Real quick. 4 seasons. The representational types of the seasons maintained a remarkable degree of continuity from late antiquity until the 18th century. That's pretty cool, actually. In Pompeian and Roman frescoes and mosaics, spring is a young woman holding flowers. Summer has a sickle and ears or sheafs of corn, so summer gets roped in with harvest, I guess. Autumn, grapes and vine leaves. Winter is thickly clad against the cold. They are fairly frequently found in paintings of the 15th to 17th centuries. Series of pictures are unfortunately often split up among different galleries. Spring has garlands in her hair, occasionally a spade or hoe, and a flower garden in the background. Okay, that kind of makes sense, I guess. The Renaissance also revived the antique tradition of representing the seasons by pagan divinities. Flora or Venus for spring, Ceres for summer, that's where the word cereal comes from, by the way. Bacchus for autumn, Boreas or Vulcan for winter. Yeah, we're not doing that. The 4 seasons were popular with 18th century French painters. Though each scene by itself would hardly be thought to be part of a series, spring is a scene of young lovers with flowers strewn in their laps, birds in a cage or on a string, or birds being snared. That's interesting. Birds being snared as spring. Don't really know about that. But we'll keep that in mind. We'll keep that in mind as we get going. But the first suggestion, so also the theme of the point of the show is that I'm not screening the suggestions. So I'm not going to do that. So we got gnome coming up first, and I hyped up these colors. Now here's the interesting thing. If I was using the old colors, I would just grab vermilion right off the bat. I would grab the cadmium scarlet right off the bat, and that is perfectly the gnome hat color. So do I stay committed? Do I stay committed here to the CMYK? Let's see if we can mix up a good red over here. And I'm going to kind of mix a little bit looser so it's interesting for you to see what I'm doing. So you can actually see, So we do have kind of a red going on. And I'm just slowly sliding in more magenta. So in my mind, it's like a compass. And it's like, here's red-violet, here's red-orange, and I want to land right in the middle. So let's see. It actually, I'm kind of surprised by the quality of the red. It actually looks pretty solid. I thought it would look kind of like chemically, but it doesn't. So let's roll with this. Let's see how this goes. And for a gnome, well, let's see. I didn't section off any parts of the picture, so we can kind of do whatever we want. Whenever we're starting from a blank page, it's part of the sort of meta-creative aspect of things we should talk about, I guess. But I never know exactly how I want to land it. I could put him down at the bottom. I could put him in the center. Let's start him right here. And I'm just going to go with the gnome hat, and then the face, and then like a huge beard. Because if I make him a figure, then the figure has to be standing in a space as he's standing on a horizon. Then we have, you know, I want to leave the pictorial space and how we're interacting with the space as ambiguous as possible. That means, like, is it like a tapestry? Is it like a window? You know, we can do a lot of stuff. So let's just start. I'm just going to throw down the gnome hat. We got a pretty good red. Let's go a little bit faster and looser than we normally do. And I have noticed, it's funny someone said gnomes. I have thought a lot about the gnome symbolism and stuff. My wife hung up all these gnome pictures in our house. I guess it's kind of part of our like relationship archetype, I guess. But the faces of the gnomes, you can get a lot of different vibes out of that. So let's see what we want to do. And now we have the perennial question that also always comes up when we start a picture. What color are we using for the lines? I could use black. I could just lean into the kind of like techie, printery look. Let's see how this goes. I usually don't use black for the lines. I usually use indigo or some kind of dark color because black is such a powerful color. It affects all the colors around it. You know, it's like if you're playing music and then all of a sudden, you know, a piccolo or like a really, really low bass instrument comes in. It changes the relationship of everything else. So normally I don't use the black, but let's try it. And so just throw in the sides of this guy's face right here. Nice. We'll give him a big beard, and that'll let us play with the gray of the black. So we'll give this guy a beard. And the paint also has a different consistency, I'm noticing. So I want to see how it handles, you know, in terms of like bleeding out and all that stuff. But let's see. That's another thing. With the other paint, it's like I know exactly what I'm getting into. But then it's kind of exciting when you use new paint because you don't know what it's going to do. There we go. Perfect. Let's just go a little looser. I'm already feeling a little caged in. And I was imagining way more of like a big bushy beard. Can I kind of like squeeze it in off the sides? Let's see. Just kind of leave that kind of like ambiguous darkness here. I'm not even going to dry it up actually. We'll leave it with the roughness. Normally I'm so worried about everything being perfect, but maybe we'll kind of lock this one into like sketchy mode. And because his head is down here, I'm going to actually make his eyes close because that opens us up into a whole lot of interesting realms. Like maybe he's having a dream, maybe he's thinking of something. Maybe his eyes aren't really even closed. Maybe that's just how his eyes are. But if we leave it like this, and I'm even going to throw in some of these ears here. So yeah, we're going to kind of lock into like sketch mode. It makes it a little bit more exciting. Okay, so we got gnome. Spool of thread. That's interesting. Thread also kind of has a dreamy connotation to it. So let's just do that. Let's just keep it rolling. I'm going to throw down an orange then, I guess. And we'll give him some red thread, and we'll have this thread that'll kind of like nicely frame the bottom of the picture. And I imagine if I started working with these colors after a while, I would get some kind of like system going on. Like I could imagine them in a triangle, and then you know, that would kind of be a nice way of like orienting the space between the colors, but we'll see. But you can't even see what I'm doing. It's too far low. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, it's interesting because again, with my old palette, I have the wood colors to grab, and I know exactly what the wood colors are. But here I'm like, well, do I use orange as the kind of wood spoolie color? I guess I can kind of tone down the orange with blue. Let's see really quick. And actually, in case you've always been confused by that, I could break out that little color chart again. But because blue and orange are opposites on the color wheel, my logistics here are, maybe I can tone it down a little bit with the blue. I could drop the black in, but then I'm just straight up like being a printer. You know, then I'm just straight up acting like a computer printer. That's pretty good though, actually. Let's do it. So I'm just going to throw in, And this paint isn't very thick. I don't know if you can tell. It's not very thick though. It handles a lot differently than the other gouache. The other gouache really handles like watercolor. But this almost handles like thin paint. So let's see, maybe I will just like lean into it and kind of make it a little bit looser. Let's see. Like normally I'm playing with like the richness of the paint, but I don't know if I can get away with that here. I don't know if I can get away with that. And we'll make the thread the same color as the hat. We'll make it a little bit of a warmer red, and then we'll come in with the dark red. So let's see, we'll just throw it in. Spool of thread, weaving, that's a very like archetypal thing. Weaving has like a weird relationship to like civilization and folklore and mythology and things like that. I know in Norse mythology they have the Norns. There are these 3 women who sit at the base of like the world tree, and they weave like fate. They weave the threads of fate, and one makes the thread, one rolls it into a ball, and one cuts it. And it's all the different aspects of fate like acting on people. But even in different like, you know, quote unquote like primitive cultures, weaving has this weird thing where it's almost like what divides like humans and the animals in a way, the fact that we can weave, and it does reflect like planning and complex societies and things like that. Let's see. You know, it's kind of interesting because I can't even like bleed it out. Like if I was working with the old paints, you know, this isn't like totally perfect, so I could bleed it out and give it like kind of a shadow. I don't know if I can do that here. I'm totally out of my comfort zone. Live, people watching, I'm just gonna have to roll with it. Performing live. Just kidding. I don't really think of it as performing. I guess it is though. Let's come in with kind of a dark red here. And I have no idea how the paint's gonna act wet on wet. So can I come in and put these lines in? Yeah, I kind of can actually. I kind of can. So let's just come in and do it. We'll go full sketch mode. Part of the reason why I started the show is that I wanted people to feel like they could just pick up some art supplies and do some random stuff. And when everything always comes out perfect, it doesn't give people that feeling. When art comes out perfect, it has that like magical effect. Not that my art comes out perfect, but when it does, it gives people that effect of like, oh, this guy's like, you know, not me, but imagine some great painter. Most people don't go to a museum and see some, you know, Renoir painting. It's a perfect example, and think, oh, I could do that. Actually has the total opposite effect. So sometimes I feel like there should be art that is at the other end of the spectrum where people see and they're like, oh, I could do that. That sounds fun. Okay. So we got the spool of thread. This is good. We got a nice little interesting, even just this, you know, part of the symbolism thing is when you start combining symbols, you get these weird sort of like intuitive relationships. So even this, even just gnome, spool of thread, you know, part of my creative development, if people are trying to flex their creative muscles, is feeling out, you know, different combinations of symbols like that. Like this isn't just totally arbitrary in your mind, you know, gnome, spool of thread. I guess we're kind of in like medievally, fairy tale-y world in my mind, but we'll see. Someone said cow. Maybe we'll do a cow. The thing is, the cow was like the centerpiece last time we did this, but I'll think about cow. Technically, I should do it because I'm not supposed to say no, but we used it last time, and I said it initially. So if you say it again, we'll do it. You passed spring. Yeah, I saw that. You should look into Joseph Smith's Book of the Dead. That sounds crazy, actually. Actually, I will look into that. I've been thinking about Mormon stuff a lot recently. Also, what's up? Yeah, I think I drew that avatar you're using, actually. Okay, Roche's fan. Definitely need some bird energy. Yeah, let's get a bird. Bird is very spring. Yeah, I'm just going to take your cue there and throw a bird in. Should we use a cardinal? I was thinking about cardinals today. I'm going to quickly throw in a cardinal. Let's do it. You didn't say what kind of bird, so that gives me a little bit of discretion. I was partially thinking about cardinals today because if anyone's part of dat world, keeping up with certain... You know, I'm going to make it more of like a generic red bird. I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit. But I was thinking about cardinals today because Cardinal Sarah resigned. If you're part of that world, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's like a Vatican thing. I like just using little generic birds. There's something about them. I have this symbolism book here that says that the sparrow is symbolic of that all creatures are fit to hear the gospel, because you'll see some really epic painting of like a biblical scene or something, and then there'll just be a little sparrow there in the corner. And it's like, no matter how humble a human is, they're like fit to be there, and like the little birds represent that. Sometimes I think about that when I'm drawing little birds, you know. They're like very unassuming, but at the same time, you know, they're very magical, like high creatures at the same time. They kind of have both of those vibes going on. And I'm just going to throw down, I'll use this space inside the bird to see what I can get going in terms of like a wash, in terms of like a fade. Because the old paint, not the old paint, but the paint that I normally use, I can really fade it out really easily. And I know that when I do that, it like releases its character. But I don't know if it's the same here. See, I'm not really getting the same like luminous effect. So this paint we might have to use in the opposite way. This might be the kind of paint that you want to build up, you know. Like, see, this didn't really do what I thought it might do. So I'm going to come back in with a darker red. Just kind of paint them in fat color style. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Perfect. And when it does get to be spring, I will see some cardinals here. If you're watching the painting show when we first started, I did a really dope image of a cardinal. And yeah, you can see I'm kind of figuring out how this paint handles, because you can see it kind of like pools a little bit. I don't want to get too obsessive, but I do want to make it look cool. So maybe what I need to do is get a little bit more hands-on. I can start to like dry off parts of it. Like, see, that looks pretty cool. That's what we want. There you go. Okay, so maybe that's the deal with this paint. Maybe we have to like dig in a little bit more and you know, wrestle around with a little bit more. But let's see. That looks cool, actually. You can see the like little pink color in there. Throw in his little feet. Bing. Perfect. And we'll kind of get the same color in the beak. And if you don't put the animal's eyes in, actually that's almost like too dark for the beak. But if you don't put the animal's eyes in, then it stays as an archetypal animal. But if you put the animal's eyes in, it becomes a particular animal with a personality. So I'm going to put the eyes in. Why not? But I don't want it to be too fleshed out. That's perfect. Sometimes you can get away with putting a little bit of like a messy eye in, and then it'll float kind of between both worlds. Okay, we got bird going on. Let's see. Definitely need some bird energy. Oh, by the way, if I miss your comment or skip over it, just say it again, because there's a lot of people, obviously. Talk about various girlfriend styles. I've been missing that thread lately. Yeah, talked about gnome girlfriends. Now I have gnome wife, though. Now I have gnome wife. My mom was obsessed with these black faux African figures that were playing drums and surfing, all set up around college country farm style decor. Weird vibe. That is a weird vibe. I don't know if I'm going to take it there right now for the picture. I don't want to get accused of being un-PC. Maybe we'll get some black figures in. Maybe an owl. Yeah, it sounds dope. That'll let us get some black in and kind of pump the color scheme a little bit more. I've probably mentioned this before, but whenever I think of an owl, I think about this time I went to this Native American ceremony, and they told people to bring birds, and then they bring bird feathers, and they said, do not bring feather of night birds such as owl. It said that on like the official like website, I guess. So I always think about that whenever I think of owls now. So let's see, and I'm going to make a little bit of an executive decision. I'm going to put this black cloud up here, because that'll give me something to perch the owl on. And maybe we can make this like night up here. We could put some stars in the black cloud. And I'm trying to put the paint on a little bit thicker. Let's see. Perfect. And then owl, we gotta get some brown in. For the owl, I really have two options. When you're doing the owl thing. I can either make it one of these like lateral ones where he's facing off to the side, like a teardrop, or he's facing us head on. And it's a pretty different effect depending on which one we choose. Maybe we'll go with the head on one. But let's see. And I'm going to see if I can mix up a brown. I might even get some black in the brown. So let's see. I'll get some of the red, blue, and yellow over here. And again, it's interesting because if I had the other paints, I would know exactly what brown to use. But maybe it's more exciting if I don't exactly know what I'm doing. And I'm just going to go, you know, we kind of have a little bit of a vibe going on, almost like folk painty because everything's so like simplified. And I'm just going to do the owl like it's facing us straight on. A little bit of like a naive painting style. And I'm going to make it a mask owl. That's like my favorite kind of owl, because they have this big white face and it comes down to a little beak in the front. And then the outside is brown around the white face. It's actually a pretty good color for a mask owl. And just a little bit of a darker color for the beak. Perfect. Perfect. Solid. Let's just throw down this brown over here. Some people have hit me up and said, you know, oh, I was watching the painting show, so I started like doing some painting stuff. That's kind of my goal, honestly. So let's see, I'm going to throw this down over here. And let's see if we can get almost like a feathery texture in. Maybe I'll take the white. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take the white. There's also maybe something about the paper. You know, when you start getting into art, it's interesting because every different material has a different effect on the final product. And I don't know if most people would think of it, but the paper has almost more of an effect than the watercolory kind of paints that you're using or whatever material you're working on the paper. Like I used to work in an art store and people would come in buying stuff, and sometimes if people were trying to upgrade their watercolor situation, I would actually advise them to just get better paper. It's almost like the paper matters more than the paint is what I would tell them sometimes. I'm just going to come in and throw in these white dots. Why not? We're going sketch mode. We might as well change it up a little bit. And then we got to get these big eyes for the mask owl. I actually don't know if the owl has black eyes or those yellow eyes that you see. I actually have no idea. But we got to lock something in. I'm feeling like orange with the black would probably be really solid. It's not very spring though. Then we got the orange and black. It's a very Halloween situation. I could just go over and make it a color that it would never be in real life. That would be an interesting move. I could give it like big green eyes or something like that. That is an interesting idea. And maybe I will do that. Well, we got the red thing going on. I really can't tell. Orange would really fit well with the color scheme. Interesting creative moment. Maybe I'll go with the yellow. Let's go with the yellow. So I'm going to throw this down over here. I really don't like using yellow straight for eyes because I had jaundice a few times, and now I feel like I'm like tempting fate whenever I paint an animal or something with yellow eyes. So I'm going to cut it a little bit with the orange just to be safe. Cool. We'll just throw this in over here. We'll make them really big. Perfect. We'll just kind of put in these big orange eyes, and then we'll come back when it dries and put in the black. Cool. It's kind of nice to just do sort of a no pressure casual painting. But I do want to make it look dope either way. So if you've never seen one of the chat suggestion ones, once we get a few things down, we'll start making some more powerful decisions and decide what direction we want things to go in. Sort of like when you're combining symbols and stuff, you know, how they're integrated and then what kind of space we're working in is really what ultimately kind of decides the flow of the picture. She's screaming cow, cow in my ear. Nice. Someone's pushing for the cow thing. All right, let's do it. I do have the cow hat. Somewhere. But let's do it. Cow also kind of fits the spring thing also in a way. And it'll let us get a little bit more black down. Let's just do it. But we have to do it a little bit differently than last time. So let's do it this way. I'm going to throw down kind of like a simple outline looking cow over here. It'll be like the threads leading down over this way. Nice. Perfect. We'll kind of throw down. What's nice about drawing cows is you can get the fat cow body in there. We'll give it like super simple legs. I really like drawing quadrupeds, like really simple animals with the almost like comically simple legs. Boom. Perfect. We'll come up here. Boom. Cows have little tails like that. The cows I see in real life are black, actually. The ones I see near my house. But of course, if you're painting the cow, you got to go with the official color scheme. I'm actually working on a commission for someone right now, and I have this like orange, red, like very earth-colored cow in it, which he asked for. But let's see what else has been going on the creative front. Been a little bit out of the theological news, but yeah, I said Cardinal Sarah resigned. I don't really have much to say about that, though, honestly. Mostly I've been thinking about doing a comic or something about crypto and sort of the interesting aspects of crypto that like dovetail with my vibe. It's so interesting because it seems like a very like, and same deal, I'm going to give him the line eyes. Maybe I'm copping out with the line eyes. But there's something about it where it's all these like tokens and like people in their basement like trading these like weird digital tokens that like don't even really exist, really, right? And they all have like logos and these weird names, you know. Something about it where I was like, yeah, I could definitely get something out of this for sure. Okay, we got cow. Maybe cow head, someone said. Yeah, that already happened. Man with a bear head from Russian folklore. That's interesting. Yeah, we should get someone with an animal head or something. All right, let's do that. Let's put this guy in with a bear head, and then we'll see exactly how we want to start like organizing things. Also, we need a figure, which is why I'm responding to that one. Eventually, so you know, this is part of my artistic practice that I had to power through eventually, but obviously right now I'm literally drawing like somewhat random symbols from you guys in the chat. But eventually doing art and painting, you know, I got to this point where I was like, well, I can just combine like random symbols and it's kind of cool, you know. I spent a really long time drawing and painting, and eventually I got to this point, like I said, where I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I could just put like what, a jellyfish, and there's Saturn and like just random things, and it doesn't really mean anything. And that was a really big turning point for me, because I was like, all right, I need to like put some actual like informational content in here, unless I'm just going full like surrealist art, which there's nothing inherently wrong with. So I'm trying to mix up sort of a nice brown for our bear head situation. I think this is pretty good though. I could darken it. See, that's the other thing with this CMYK color scheme, which if you're just tuning in, I haven't used before. I don't know exactly how darkening things with black affects it, because I'm very used to not doing that. Normally I would darken things with brown or blues. The black is just so powerful. But I guess if that's the move, that's the move. So I'll come in here and we'll make this. So right now you can also see just in terms of like the meta creative process and what's going on, like everything right now is the same exact size. And if we kept chugging along with putting things together in the same size, eventually there's no visual hierarchy. It's like you just get this table full of cubes that are all the same size, and your eye doesn't really know exactly where to focus in on anything. And there's no subject, you know, it's like a story where everything has the same exact level of emphasis. How would you know like what's important really? So we need something a little bit bigger, and that's what we're going to get right now. I'm going to throw in this guy with the bear head. I'm not familiar with the bear-headed man from Russian folklore, but... Oh, I use these ears. I'm going to give him more bear ears, I guess. Bears have round ears. I drew a panda. I don't know if anyone follows me on Instagram, but I drew this panda. And I showed it to my wife, and she was like, that's not what a panda looks like. Because it had these pointy ears. And people on Instagram were kind of roasting me a little bit. So we got the bear ears there. And I am going to come in with the teeth. Need the teeth for the bear. Perfect. Obviously, it's funny because the other cool thing about the crypto stuff, I haven't talked about it too much because it's kind of like if you're part of that world, it's interesting. But if you're not, then you're just, it's totally like cut off from you. But the other interesting thing about that whole realm and like sort of the whole financial sector in general is it also comes with its own set of symbols and symbolic meaning. You know, you have like bear market and bull market and all this like financial symbolism, and that's also always interesting to me to poke into another set of symbols that all come together to form like a cohesive narrative. Perfect. So we got this bear head. I'm just going to throw down the color inside. And again, I feel like I'm kind of wrestling. Not wrestling with the bear, but I'm wrestling with like the nature of this paint. It's not like very fluid. It almost feels like I'm using acrylic paint. You can see how thin it is, right? You can see clearly on your screen. You can see the brush strokes. That's not really something I'm used to having to deal with the paint. So let's see. Maybe I'll come back over it. Maybe I'll do like painting over it, like this is just the base color or something. I don't really know. It's kind of cool though, honestly. But if you're just tuning in for the first time, like if you've never seen a show before, normally I'm using a lot more expensive paint. Actually, this paint was kind of expensive, but it's a different kind of paint. So, or maybe the answer is to use the, you see this kind of texture I got going on, to use the opacity of it a little bit more. Can't really tell. That gradient is pretty sweet though, actually. So I thought it'd be kind of nice to feel it out with you guys, honestly. And then whenever you do an animal-headed person, you got to feel out how I want to bridge the gap between the animal head and the human body. I could just segue right into like a person body with no clothes, but I feel like the clothes are obviously like what kind of seals the deal. And since we're going spring style, not really spring style, but hint of spring style, I think it'd be cool to put some clothes on him. We did just read in the allegory of the seasons that winter is typically like a very hyper bundled up person, and spring, you know, obviously is more loosely dressed with flowers and stuff. So we could make Bear this kind of like winter figure here and give him some like winter clothes. That actually would be kind of cool. Let's do it. Let's do that. And I just got the black right here. Black is it's pretty much the darkest color we have. So let's just throw like a winter coat on him. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see if we can get him in like a pea coat. I guess we really are in like fairy tale realm with the gnome and the spool of thread and everything. And actually, so when you draw a guy, this is another just little note, but how broad you make the shoulders really determines how masculine he looks. So I drew this little shoulder here, and I was thinking, no, it's not the move, obviously. If we have a bear, it has to be sort of a powerful figure. There we go. And let's see what I can do with the trailing off effect down here. Let's see how good I can get it to look. It's a little shiny. I'm going to move it over just a little bit. Cool. So let's see how good we can get it going with the trail off. What I'm going to do is just get it very black and just see if I can get that dry brush texture at the bottom. And I'll come in with this totally black, and then we'll come back after it dries and put in the sort of like lines that make it look like a coat or something. And I'm actually thinking it would be cool. We can have like an arrow going through him, or he could be getting stabbed or something, and there could be like blood pouring out. That would just be cool because it would sort of offset the cute vibe that you guys have given me in terms of the symbols. It would offset, you know, the gnome and spool of thread. That's also a nice thing to do if you're doing art sometimes, is just to mix it up a little bit in terms of the symbolic families and stuff that you're working with. I can't tell how I feel about this weak opacity paint. It's very interesting. Because if I was using the other gouache that I'm used to, it would be like black, like totally 100% black, like the night. But now I'm getting this kind of loose flavor over here. Maybe I just need to paint like way thicker. I'm actually putting down like thick pigment now. So let's see, because I want it to be black. Perfect. Maybe that's the answer too. And then if you start working with different layers of paint, that can also be visually interesting. Like even right here, we have that sort of weak, light black wash right next to the thick black paint. So you can get some interesting like color and texture going on. Let's see, maybe we want to do that. Cool. I'm just going to leave that shine there for a minute. We'll let it dry and the shine will go away. Throw down the rest of the bear's neck. Could also just have him in like a black t-shirt. Just like a nondescript black piece of clothing. Cool. Okay. And I'm going to come back in and throw his eyes in. Oh, let's just go with the black. And since we're in this realm, I'm going to go with this kind of eye. We are in this sort of very pictorial, illustrative space. It's partially because of the paint. The paint's not really giving me the painterliness that I want. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, sometimes I would say there's a dichotomy, an opposites between something being very painterly, like lots of thick, you know, color, the color really communicating the form and stuff, versus something being illustrative, which is what you're seeing here, where it's almost like drawn with color. There's a dichotomy between drawing and painting in that way, where the lines are communicating information, or if the colors and the colors are communicating form and information. We'll see how this goes. And since we did kind of puncture into this, I really hate using this word, kind of cute space over here, I am going to have something like stabbing this bear and like blood pouring out of him, because I got to keep up my tough guy image a little bit. and the bear's looking a little too cute. It's one thing I don't roll with is the cute stuff. So let's see if I can get a tongue in here. When I do the animal's mouth like this, I like to get a little bit of a tongue. It's perfect. Cool. It's very dark, but let's see. Maybe we can make it work. Now it's too light. Now it's not even there. Perfect. Perfect. It's pretty cool. And, you know, since he represents winter, let's see. I want to get a little bit more of like a complex, interesting pictorial situation going on. So I'm going to give him a halo. Sort of a, not a halo, but like an aura. And I'm just going to grab this blue. I actually don't even know how this paint will re-wet either. So I'm going to grab this blue. And I'm going to grab some white. And I want this exactly the color I'm getting. I want this very icy blue. You can see how cool it is. Cool, not cool like guy in a leather jacket. Cool. Cool like the color is cool. Perfect. And since we're going loose style, I almost feel like I should get a thicker brush, but I'm just going to come up and see what happens when I get this kind of... We haven't really done anything like truly sketch style, just truly like totally loose. So maybe that's what we're getting out of our system this week. I'll just kind of come in with this blue, and then I want to get a little bit of a gradient. So I'm going to punch out this white and get more of the white in here. So now I'm going to come back with more white. We should have a bigger brush. Maybe I'll get out the bigger brush. And I'll come around. We could even put something in this halo. Perfect. And that is a nice wintry, icy blue. I walk the dog every morning, and it really makes me think so much about like the seasons and all that stuff, because I feel like I see the seasons change every morning. You know, one minute I go out and I need the flannel and the pea coat and the whole deal. And then the next day I go out and I could just wear a t-shirt and a sweatshirt. And I'm like, oh, it changed. I didn't even notice. Okay, cool. Feel pretty good about that. Okay, let's see what else is going on. Someone said, do you think eyes individuate the animal more by adding face identity or the animal's intention and interest? That's interesting. Animal's identity? It's kind of both. You can just use like a black dot even, and it'll impart that like personality onto the animal, even if you give it like no intention or action or anything. So I think it's just part of like reading human faces into things and anthropomorphizing things, honestly. A doll. That's interesting. We're really in the fairy tale space, I guess. That's what you guys want. We're really in like the fairy tale realm over here. I don't think I've ever painted a doll in my entire life. Got this far into illustrating, but no, let's do it. A doll. A doll. What does a doll even look like? A generic doll, like a little woman, a little person. Is that what I'm painting? When I think of a doll, I think of like a voodoo doll, honestly. I know that's probably not what you meant, but that's kind of what it makes me think of. A doll, like a little homunculus, a little tiny person. So that's what I'm going to paint. I know you were probably thinking of a cute doll, but it would perfectly fit over here, and it would tie in with the threads. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to grab this brown color, and we'll give it these arms. Not really a true voodoo doll, but one of those stuffed little pin cushiony dolls. Let's see. And I got this really weird green gold color. I wasn't really expecting that. Let's see. Maybe I can grab a little bit more of it. Come through here. Nice. And I'm going to have to outline this because it's so pale. Again, people are going to come through. This is going to be the first one they watch, and they're going to be like, that's how this guy paints? But I've never used these paints before. Perfect. And I guess we're going to have to come in and outline that with something. Let's see. Am I using the black as the outline? I guess I am. I'm really pioneering new material realms with you guys right now. So let's see. Maybe the black outline is the way to go. Perfect. And I'm going to take the needle from the thread, and we're going to have it poking into the doll. It's a perfect way to marry the two symbols together. And then we're going to start thinking about the background. Something like springy. Maybe we'll have like a sprout poking through the ice or something. Let's see, we'll come up through here. Boom. Boom. Perfect. Perfect. Nice. It's pretty cool. How do we make it look like a doll though? How do we summon up that doll feeling? I guess these dolls have button eyes. That's one thing that makes them really look like dolls. Also, you can see the stitching on them. So we need to be able to see the stitching. So I'm going to make an orange color. And I'm going to throw in some stitching on our woven person. There's something about, you know, I guess, again, I didn't plan this image, you guys did, I guess, but there's something about the fairy tale symbolism where things that have, things that are innocuous take on sort of an oddly deeper meaning. Like when you say doll and we're in this kind of pictorial space, it makes me think of, you know, a doll is almost like a doppelganger. If people know what a doppelganger is. A doll is almost like a mimic. It has like this mimicky copy, carbon copy, you know, even a voodoo doll. A voodoo doll, in a way, functions the way it does because it's a doppelganger. In case people don't know what a doppelganger is, some people probably know that word, but a doppelganger is a double of yourself. And I think it's in German folklore, but if you see your doppelganger, supposedly you're going to die. And there's some stories about some famous people, not recently famous, but like in the 1800s or so, who saw their doppelganger and then they died. Who knows if it's true or not, right? But mimics and copies of yourself and things like that, they have that weird symbolism, I guess you could say. So I'm going to put a little sew-y part over here. And I don't have as much control over the colors as I normally do. You know, if I had my old paints, I would know exactly, like, I know what color I would have made that. I could have hit the perfect, like, burlap sack color. And then the stitching, I could have made it the perfect brown color. But you can see it's almost like I don't want to say miscalibrated, but I'm not like calibrated to the paints. So I got this orange stitching over the green gold color. I mean, it kind of looks cool, honestly. I don't really have like a big problem with it. Cool. So we have this little sewn doll that's very unintentionally creepy. And we'll put some button eyes on there. I mean, if that's where we're taking it, that's where we're taking it. I don't know if I should go full red because then it's going to look like a little bloody murdery. You know, I don't want to get into that realm. But I'll take this nice, take this dark blue. Let's put these eyes on here. Perfect. This other one too. Perfect. Cool. It's kind of cool actually. And then once it dries, we'll come in with the needle. Actually, well, we're doing it sketching style. I'm not going to wait for it to dry. I'm just going to do it right now. I'm going to take some more black, and we'll have the needle coming off the thread. Boom, poking our little doll situation over here. Okay. And I did look ahead in the chat. RKD said, I'm enjoying the Owen versus new material angle. Adds a bit of suspense to the stream. Would enjoy seeing you figure out new materials live more often. Yeah, honestly, we could do that. We could do that. There's a few materials that I do want to figure out. So maybe we will. Maybe we will do that. But for now, we are wrestling with the, what is it, Japanese CMYK colors? Could have branded the show that way. It sounds a lot sexier if you say like the Japanese paints. But I don't think they're Japanese. Ugh, and the exact thing that I didn't want to happen, happened. Which is, I made a tangent. Not a verbal tangent, but the needle is touching perfectly the end of the bird. That's called a tangent in illustration. When two things that aren't supposed to be on the same plane are touching perfectly, it makes them look like they're flat and like right next to each other. It's not a huge deal for this, but it's not ideal. It actually looks pretty solid. Looks pretty cool down there. Actually, our little patchy doll thing. Why does this kind of doll have a creepy feeling? Why does like stitching feel creepy? Is it because of like scarecrows and things from like horror movies? It is because of how I painted it. Okay, anyway, I got down there for a little bit, and while I have that color out, while I have the black out, I'm gonna come back up and Give our owl some darker eyes. I think the orange up here is dry. Perfect. But actually, I almost kind of regret doing that because it looks a little too imperfect. So I'm actually just going to take it in a different direction and give it the one black eye and the one orange eye. A little bit of intriguing flavor going on there. What do they call this? Heterochromia, when you have two eyes that are two different colors. Okay, so let's see how we want to do this. I'm going to make a few executive decisions right now. I'm going to make a few executive calls right now. Someone said mushrooms. I will jump back in the chat in a second, but I want to take control for a second. I'm taking control from the people. We left democracy mode, now we're in like dictator mode. And I'm going to flip the palette over so we just have some more space. I have this giant palette. So I'm going to pick up the mic. If you have this crazy loud, you can probably hear my palette turning. And I'm going to take the reins a little bit right now. I'm going to take the reins. Sorry. It's probably really loud for you, but you know what you signed up for. Cool. Let's see. This is perfect. This is perfect. And what I'm going to do right now is I want to get some cohesion going on here. I want to start to organize this into like an actual picture rather than just like random stuff. So I'll let you know what I'm thinking in my mind. It's kind of like the interesting part of everything, right? We have these black fields, and I talked about making them into night spaces. So what I think I might do is put like a moon with some stars in those two spaces. Once you activate one black space and put stars in it and it starts to read as a night sky, the other black spaces, you can do it very easily. So I'll actually just do it right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the white, and I'm going to put a moon and some stars in this black space on the bear over here. And really you just need one star, and then the little white dots will read as stars. That's also why I'm going to use a moon. I don't really have an attachment to putting a moon in the picture, but that will also tell the viewer, oh, this black space is like night. If you just put the stars in, it could look like snow. Maybe it's just a polka dot pattern or something. So I'm going to put a really thin crescent moon in here. Perfect. Doesn't really look too much like a moon, but with the stars it will. I just want it to be really thin. Something about the thin moon makes me think of spring, even though, of course, you see the thin moon all year round. And in case people don't know, I always think about whether it's a waxing or a waning moon, if it's getting bigger or getting smaller. So we've talked about this a really, really, really long time ago, but if you take the moon shape and you draw a line down the middle, if it makes a D, like it does here, it means the moon is dying, it's getting smaller. If it's poking the other way and you put a line down, it makes a B for getting bigger. That's how if you're ever out and about and you look at the moon, or more importantly, if you're making a picture or something, you can know if the moon's getting bigger or smaller in your picture, and you can use that to your symbolic advantage. Sometimes if I, have a picture and a guy's looking out the window and it's night and he's like really depressed, I'll make it like a dying moon. I'll make it a moon getting smaller. Or if it's about like new beginnings or things like that, I'll make the moon getting bigger. In my comics, sometimes I've had, running throughout the whole comic, the moon going from new moon to the end. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool touch that most people probably don't notice. And now that I have that one star, you can see what I mean. Just by dropping some of these white spaces in. I might have even done it a little bit too hard. I can be a little heavy-handed, you could say, but it's okay. So then in here, I'm going to do the same thing. When you're spacing out the stars, you really want them to be random. It's funny because as a human, it's actually impossible for you to do anything randomly. So I sort of just go for it. Even what I just did right now is not random, but whatever. Boom. Perfect. Perfect. So that looks pretty solid to me. And the other thing that I'm thinking that will start to marry this together and put it into a little bit of a cohesive thing is I want to have a horizon coming out here. I want it to be green. And it doesn't have to be green. We'll consider that. But the horizon coming out here, the cow is standing on it, right? And then if we want to get really weird, we can have this blood like pouring out of the bear. And maybe it's like plants are sprouting out of it. Like maybe the blood is like furnishing these plants. And then we have this cloud up here. So we could also have rain or something coming down. And then we have a pretty solid spring situation going on. So I'm going to cook up this green right now, and again on the mixing colors, new paint situation thing, with the greens now, instead of deciding the pigment, when I use the word pigment, I mean the thing that is giving the paint its color. So instead of thinking, oh, do I want sap green? That's the pigment. Kind of, I'm oversimplifying. Or Viridian's the pigment. I'm not thinking that way anymore because I'm not using those paints. It's almost like, you know, if you're going to grab an instrument, do you want the violin or you want the trumpet? You know, it's totally different, right? But now it's like I have a synthesizer. Now I'm using a more digital analog, so all I have is the slider. And when I mix this green right now, I'll just be deciding, do I want it to be more blue or more yellow? It's just green. I just have the green instead of these varying green pigments. So it's kind of interesting. And I saw someone said in the chat actually exactly what I was just thinking. I'm just going to mix there's a gap right here. It's fine. We're being pretty casual right now. Normally I would try and make everything look perfect, but you know, we're just chilling kind of, right? So I'm going to take this blue and I'm just going to make it slide over. I'm just going to run it from a blue-green. It's nice. I've been using this color a lot, this blue-green. It makes me think of malachite in Tibetan paintings. Malachite is a green-blue stone. It's actually exactly this color. This is the exact color that malachite is. And in Central Asian painting, and Asian painting in general, maybe they use it in the West too, I don't know. It's literally exactly this color. This is perfect. I know you can't see because it's just a little bit, but I'm about to drag it out right now. I used to have some here, but I don't have it anymore. And they would crush it up and turn it into paint. It's a really good color because you usually think of like teal and blue-green, and most people hate that color. But I think it's because the chemical manifestations of it are usually pretty bad. But then when you see a really nice natural manifestation of it, it's almost like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what blue-green is supposed to look like. Let me have a little bit, just a more green, blue-green. We're sliding over. Let's throw this down here. Cool. And then we'll put a little bit over here to just balance it out a little bit. And then we'll make it a little bit more yellow. Maybe now we can hit the neutral green, just no such thing really, but we can imagine we're landing right on pure green. The green, the archetypal platonic green that is perfectly between the blue greens and the yellow greens. Okay, looking pretty good. And then we'll punch into the yellow greens. Yellow green is also a color I warmed up to recently. Been using it a little bit more, especially digitally. You know, again, there's a whole another analog where the digital colors are also totally different, but digitally at first it has this almost like sour edge, like it's almost too digital, you know? But I've been leaning into that a little bit recently. I made this picture of an angel, and in the glow around the outside of him, I put this yellow-green. And at first I was like, oh, it looks like kind of sick. Like in a bad way. And then I was like, oh, that looks sick in like, like a good way. All right, so I got this green fade here. And again, not to just keep repeating myself, but you can see that I'm almost fighting with these, like, you know, it's interesting because these paints were really expensive, but they almost are giving me this kind of like cheap look. You know, I would describe this as like a cheap look. If I came over to your house and you showed me this painting and you were like, oh, give me some advice, I would say you need more expensive paint. That's the first thing I would say when I saw this. But I bought these, so I know they're not cheap. So I wonder why that is. Maybe I'm just using them in a weird way. Could be the paper. I am using them in a very illustrative way, so maybe if I use them on like in a more watercolory way, I'd get away with a little bit more. That's pretty good, actually. I like how that looks. And we got to decide what is stabbing the bear. We got to decide what is poking into the bear. I mean, the thing is that if I put it down here, it's too close. I could have like something pouring out of his mouth. Then we're kind of in like a weird space where there's like blood pouring out of the bear's mouth, but that is kind of cool also. It's kind of cool. I think we're just going to do that. So this is like the death of winter, I guess. That's where we're going with this. Like the death of winter is creating the new life. Maybe this is the gnome's dream. Maybe that's what this picture is called. Maybe the gnome is like dreaming about the transition of his natural environment from winter to spring. In a way, this is almost my favorite time of the year, actually. It's so like triumphant, you know? And the color scheme is really good because you have winter, but then you just have a little bit of life. Symbolically, it's like the best, honestly. Because you have life triumphing over death. We celebrate that at Christmas, you know, we celebrate that. Well, we celebrate that all over the year. I guess really Easter is kind of like life triumphing over death in a way. But for me, it's like when spring starts to poke through winter, which is what we have right now. Such an optimistic time of year. You know, all you can be is that little like sprout, you know, poking up through the sidewalk. And everything else is dead around you, but you're like, oh yeah, the year's just starting. We're just getting started. I can't really get this like blood red that I want. I guess I need to make it a little bit more magenta-y. So, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good blood red. And let's just go for it. Last chance to bow out. Last chance to bow out, but we're not going to. We're just going to go for it. Tyler Tudor said this is great. Thanks, man. Boom. Oh, nice. And you know, you can see actually, so someone said before, you know, oh, seeing you use the materials is interesting and feeling them out. So you can see right here, I feel like I just, boom, like something just clicked for me when I saw this. You see, it's such a tiny detail, but you see how the red goes over the blue and we get that cool opacity, that cool little change there. That makes me think that that's probably part of the key to using this paint. Using that kind of like, oh, they stack, they're kind of transparent. It makes me think I should be thinking more designery. You know, I'm going to do it again, but you're not going to get the same nice effect because now I'm just going for it. But that makes me think that I am trying to make the paints be something they're not. And then I can get these kind of cool effects. That's really interesting, actually. Maybe I'll use these again on another show with that in mind. Because if I was thinking about stacking layers, you know, if I was thinking of stacking transparent layers, I would have done this a lot differently. But I wasn't. It's kind of like when you play instruments, you know, you have to lean into like the nature of an instrument. One of my seminal creative moments was I play guitar and I play bass, right? We talked about my bass a few other times before. But I was in a band, and also I would play music with people. And normally I'd play guitar, which is, you know, you've probably listened to some music that has guitar in it, you know how it works, right? But my main instrument, I guess, is really bass, you know, so then I would switch back and forth between them. And there was just one time when I was playing with this group of people. I remember it very vividly because it, like, this idea, like, never left my mind. But we're playing in the studio, and I was playing the bass, and I was trying so hard to, like, do something cool or, you know, be, like, a cool part of the music, you know? And then it just kind of clicked with me. It's probably going to sound stupid, but it just kind of clicked with me, and I was like, oh, I just need to, like, let the bass, like, be the bass in the song. Like, I'm not playing guitar. I'm all the way up here on, like, if you play instruments, you know what I'm talking about? Like, the high end of the register, and I'm trying to make the bass be a guitar, you know? But it's not. I have to just let it be the bass, and I switched over to this other way of playing it. And something about that, like, really just clicked with me. And I think about that a lot when I'm doing anything creative now. Because it's like, I can't fight the physical materials. I have to work with the physical materials. I'm going to put a little white in the blood and see if I can get it coming out over here on this side. It might, like, chalk it up. White tends to chalk up colors. Anyway, and I have those kind of moments all the time working creatively. For example, I was, what was I even working on? I don't even remember what I was working on. But I had some drawing, and I thought, oh, it was the Melancholia print that I did. I did this vibe pack. It's on my studio. I'm sold out of them now. But I did this print. I did 40 of these drawings of Durr's Melancholia. And it's like an angel, and, you know, it's a cool drawing. It's a line drawing. And I was online, and I was like, man, I really want to print this in gold ink on black paper. I know that would look sick. I got to do it gold ink on black paper. That was my idea. And I was going to all these websites, and I'm looking at, like, wedding invitation places. Like, are they going to print it for me? And I'm calling places. I'm like, do you print with gold ink? Like, do you print with gold ink? And eventually I realized, I was like, yo, I have this really expensive printer here. Like, why am I locked into fighting the reality of my material situation? Like, oh, I have to have it this one way. You know, I should just turn it around and work with the materials that I have. And instead, I printed it in purple ink on white on this watercolor paper, and it looked awesome. So the point is kind of, I feel like often when you're doing creative stuff, you're unintentionally fighting the reality of the materials instead of working with them. It's kind of a long-winded little monologue, but I feel like that's really important. You know, people don't think about art or creative things that way often, or at least I didn't for a long time. You know, you're like more curating. You're like almost like you're curating the materials, you know. Anyway, cool. This is going well. Okay, so we got the blood. We punctured out of the cute fairy tale space. I feel like the blood really got me there. And let's get some rain coming down from the cloud too. Let's get that going. We could decide if we want to do something interesting with the rain. You know, do we want it to be a weird color? That's like my first instinct there. What colors could it be? I mean, if it's green, it's not going to look like rain. If we lock into having drops, then it will look like liquid coming from the cloud no matter what. So we could make it drops, but then let's shop colors together. Blue, that's probably what it's going to be. Water, obvious. Green's going to look like acid rain. I don't want to get like the acid rain thing going on. Purple, it's not really part of the color scheme right now. Wine color is going to look like wine. Red would look like blood. It's kind of interesting, but we have a lot of red going on here. I don't want to do that, honestly. Orange, not really doing much for me. Yellow, not really doing much for me. Then we're back to green. So let's do it as blue. The only other option is we could have it fading from one color to another. We could have just the first layer of teardrops red and then have it fade over to blue. That would be kind of cool, and I think a gradient would break up the space nicely. Let's try it. Why not? Why not just try it? We're experimenting together. So what I'm going to do is, because it's such a tight space to make a gradient, it's not much visible space. We'll have it go from red to purple to blue, and let's see if we can actually do it. What I'm going to do is we'll just have that one red drop firstly, and then I'm going to start mixing the blue in. So let's see. Man, that really did not make a nice purple. Are you looking at that? That's horrible. Let's try that again. I think it's because, if you can see this dark color here, it's kind of what I was mentioning before. There was already some yellow in this red, I guess. I forgot because I'm talking to you guys. And then yellow and purple cancel each other out. So boom, I got this weird black color. It's not what I want. So let's try again. And someone said, did you record an album? Can't say. Can't say. There's no albums that ever are recorded where I was like a real creative force on them, put it that way. I did the band thing, you know, partially because it was cool for me to show up and I could like participate in other people's like creative projects. I was always really focused on art, so it's kind of why it was nice for me. And then again, like, I play bass, so it's kind of cool because you can show up and, you know, the guy's like, oh, we wrote this song, like, you know, here's how the bass part should be, or you can change it if you want, you know. But there's no like recorded Owen album out there where like I wrote the songs or like anything like that. I always wanted to be into that, honestly. I wanted to be I really wish I had some of the bard archetype. It's funny because I'm a painter, you know, and people always, I mean, not my paintings necessarily, but people think art is cool, you know, people think painting is cool, but there's something about someone being able to pick up like a musical instrument and then just make like a whole world. Like the singer-songwriter thing, I actually do think is really cool. Someone like, you know, it's kind of a lame example, not to like shit on him because I'm about to use him as a positive example. But there's this guy Donovan who's like a 70s musician, and it's not even that like I really love his music even that much, but he's such a good embodiment of that archetype. He really is like a bard. And I wish I had some of that, but I don't. I can't sing is the thing. That's really the issue. And these drops are really dark, so I'm going to just pick them up a little bit. Perfect. Guess we did get the purple even though even though I wanted to avoid it. And yeah, there's something about singing I've always just felt really cut off from. I don't know if other people have that, but I just don't. It's not something that comes natural to me. In my more dramatic moments, I remember... it was actually, it's funny, I brought it up before. It was at the same Native American ceremony I brought up before. Actually, it was a different one. But this guy was like, you can't sing if your heart is burdened. Singing unburdens your heart. And I was like, okay, shout me out, dude. Sometimes I feel that way. Sometimes I feel like maybe I can't sing because my heart is burdened. This is the dark and serious moment of the show. Anyway, so we'll have this fade up. Now we're going to make it to blue. We're pretty deep in purple territory over here. Let's see. Any other questions in the chat? Russian folktale. A man was punished for not bowing out of gratitude to a gnome that he managed to catch. The bear may bow to you, but Ivan does not, so he gave him a bear head. That's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with any gnomes in the wild, obviously. Obviously, that's a rookie mistake. Messing with wild forest creatures, what are you doing? That's like folklore 101. Literally, that's literally folklore 101. Is not to mess with forest creatures. Such a mistake. Has anyone seen Akira Kurosawa's Dreams? One of the only movies that I've that I really vibe with. But the whole first little dream he makes is about that. If you've never seen the movie, I highly recommend it. I've only seen like 20 movies in my whole life probably. I'm really not a movie guy. But that movie is sick. And the whole first part is about that. I won't ruin it actually, but he encounters some forest creatures and you're not supposed to do that basically. Alright, so we got this blue. And you can see it's kind of like a dull blue. These colors are more dull than I thought they would be. I was kind of going for like electric. I was going for like electric colors here, but it's really interesting. Can you even see the color? It's almost like black, right, against the paper. But there's something about the blue purple, like the blue violet, that has this like dull flavor to it. I don't know why. But let's see. We'll get to blue at the bottom. And these colors also don't release their essence so much. With the other watercolors, like I was saying before, I guess I made the blue ones bigger because I really just want really ham-fistedly like, look, it's the blue ones now. It said it got disconnected for a second, but it looks like I'm back. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. It said just like for 1 second I got disconnected, but I think it's cool. Let me know. Someone say something in the chat. Boom. We're back. Perfect. You're back. Perfect. It's because I was talking about the gnomes. We're talking about forest creatures. I'm almost not in a forest, but I'm in a rural environment. Okay, we got kind of sucked into the water drops here, but I think it was a good call actually. So now we have the water of nature like mixing with the blood of this bear. It's pretty solid actually. And I say this pretty much every time that boom, perfect. Anytime we do something kind of more loose, I say this, but the kind of sketchy stuff, that's where you get like really good ideas from. So like, again, I say this every time we do one of these, but like maybe I wouldn't like, be like, oh, perfect, the best painting I ever made. But like the ideas naturally come together. Like even something like just the rain mixing with blood, that is definitely something that I'll use in one of my own pictures for sure. It's kind of a cool idea. Kind of hints at like the Jesus getting stabbed and then water and blood pour forth from his wound. The mixing of water and blood is something that I really like in pictures a lot. Okay, so I really took the reins. If anyone wants to keep suggesting symbols, you can. But I'm kind of glad that I did because I just wanted to cohesive it up a little bit. What time is it? It's 8:30, so I want to start honing in on where we're going to land on this one. So what I'm thinking, if I'm thinking about where we're going to land on this one, is clearly something needs to be right here, and I think we should have a plant growing out of the blood. That's pretty cool. So I'm just going to go for it. Let's see. It'll take like 15 more minutes and then we'll wrap it up. This is really fun. I'm having a really good time with you guys. I just want to go check on... I don't have to, but I kind of just want to go check on my dog and make sure she's chilling. We didn't really talk about that too much, but I mentioned. So she's getting used to people, and normally I don't like to, like, blog on the show and just, like, literally tell you random stuff about my life. But it's interesting because I take sort of a spiritual view of everything, obviously. Let's see, really quick though, what kind of flower are we going to put on here? Rose, what's a spring flower? It's a good question. Rose isn't really like a spring flower to me. Rose is like too deep for spring. You need something kind of like delicate. Maybe like a daffodil is like spring flower. Let's use a flower that I never use. Daffodil. Can I really paint the daffodil? Maybe like a tiger lily, like a lily or something is cool. A lily is kind of like a nice embodiment of spring. Lily is very like Virgin Mary though. I'm just going to make it one of those poofy yellow flowers. Why not? Let's just go for it. Tulips. I was thinking about tulips. Someone said tulips. Let's iris. I feel like I have to look up like what an iris looks like. Normally I never look up anything on the show, but I'm just going to look it up really quick. This is the casual episode, so why not? Look up tulip. Let's see. Oh wait, I looked up tulip. I know what a tulip looks like. An iris, that's what it was? Yeah. I guess I could just show my phone on the screen. I mean, I'm not trying to like not dox my phone. Oh, look. That's what it looks like. Okay. Yeah, let's go for an iris. We got the purple going on. Let's do it. Okay. So I'm just going to mix back in over here. I'm going to grab some of the magenta. It's almost this perfect meeting of the magenta and purple. We'll grab some white. I think I'm just slightly off camera, but it's okay. Perfect. This actually is kind of a spring color in a way. It's very like delicate, light purple. Let's see. I'm going to have to like picturize it up a little bit because it's kind of a weird shaped flower. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to paint in the shell of it and then pick it up with the paper towel. I feel like that's like the way to go with these paints because they're kind of like dull in a way. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly what I wanted. And then they don't really have this kind of like outflowing part, but I'm just going to put it in because it's going to make it look more like a nice flower. It's perfect. And then let's see the top parts. Maybe I can get away with this, just coming up like... Yeah, not exactly. I gotta really flesh out those petals. Yeah, that looks pretty good actually. That looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks great with the light and the dark. Perfect. Okay, we'll put some leaves on the iris, and then I'm gonna start wrapping this up because it looks pretty solid. So I'm gonna start landing in on where we're gonna land. Perfect. That's not exactly how I wanted that to be. That's neither is that. Can we get the perfect leaf? Ugh, come on. Cool. I'll take that for sure. Cool. Same deal. I'm gonna pick up the colors. Yeah, you can see when I come through with the paper towel, it like releases more of the colors like true nature. Okay, this is pretty solid. Okay, so we're almost closed in. We're almost closed in here. I kind of want something right above the iris here. I could put like a crown. Oh, okay, perfect. Castomir said, can you put a butterfly in the top right? Oh, perfect. Perfect timing, bro, because I was just wondering what I was going to put right there. Maybe that'll be the last thing we put in. I was going to put like a tulip on the cow's head, honestly, but everything is just so balanced that I don't want to upset the balance, but I might do that anyway, just because I want to. That'll be the last thing we put in. If anyone wants to ask me anything else, they can. Otherwise, we're going to start landing the plane. Okay, we got the yellow over here. And I guess we'll go with kind of like an orange butterfly. You guys got me painting like dolls and butterflies. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anyone. Just kidding. Cool. It's pretty solid. I really like doing these episodes because it's like a way of me like relinquishing control momentarily. You know, I get stuck in the same symbol sets over and over. So let's see. I'm just gonna put this in. And yeah, I feel like these paints would really thrive in more of like a loose, heavy painting situation. Maybe we'll even do that next week. I'm not rethinking it, but I'm just like assessing how I want to do it with the reading and art together. But yeah, if you've been watching the show, you know we've been doing it like hitting a text and then doing a picture based on it. But it's kind of a nice thing about the show. I can do whatever I want. I don't need to feel locked into any like particular format. So maybe next week we'll just do something totally different. Yeah, it looks pretty solid. Looks pretty solid. And I'm just wondering if I'm going to put like a red tulip on top of the cow's head as like a last detail. I feel like I am, because sometimes when you're doing a picture, it's nice to, what was I going to say? Like isolate the different colors and see how they're functioning. So like when I just think about the red itself, the red is kind of forming this ring all around, you know? So I think that maybe if I get the red over here, it'll balance out all this, and then we'll probably be good to go. So maybe that'll be the last thing we do right now. So I'm going to take the red. I don't want it to be too dark. I don't want to accidentally... You know, I'm going to grab some white. I'm going to chalk up this red a little bit. This will be the last thing we do. Perfect. I feel like I kind of ushered in a little bit of a spring vibe in my life right now. Hope you feel the same way. We don't want to jinx it. We don't want to get too cocky. But spring is coming. Okay, I'm going to throw this down. I went outside in a t-shirt multiple times today. Oh yeah, wait, so that's how I'll wrap it up. I was going to say with my dog, it's interesting because, you know, I kind of view everything through a spiritual lens, and she's so like scared of other people that it manifests as like anger. She like manifests this like anger about them, and it's so interesting because obviously she, you know, I love the dog and I like personify her probably more than I should. But the anger just like totally like consumes her. You know, she becomes this being of like rage. And it's so interesting because then I like calm her down and I can see her almost like transform back into the normal dog, you know? And it makes me think of like in Greek mythology and stuff like that, where like, you know, if someone, the forces are almost like personified, you know, if someone gets really mad, it's like they're overcome with like Mars, or they're overcome with these like, you know, emotions that are almost like entities in and of themselves. And it's just really interesting. It's been really interesting, like being hooked up to the dog, and I'm like, okay, calm down. I'm like, I know you want to. It's kind of cool also because she wants to just like protect my wife and my house. So I'm kind of like, epic department. Like I'm kind of down. It's okay that you're getting like too mad about like protecting my house. Like that's my biggest problem in life. I'm kind of okay with it. Okay, cool. And we got this orange eye up here. I don't want to overdo it, but I feel like if I come in with the red, that maybe that will get us exactly where we want to be. So I am just going to wash over this with a red right now. And yeah, I really want to see how these paints work fast and loose. I think next week that's how we might do it. Just I'm thinking like, that looks dope by the way, like huge washes. Maybe that's what we'll do next week. I'll break out the big watercolor paper. I got some big brushes, and we'll just go like washes of color. And I think if we get the colors interacting in that way, that's how they're really going to shine. Because I can imagine, you know, if I had a huge brush and I did a wash of yellow and then I did a wash of the cyan, these colors are really made for, this is kind of like the recap, I guess, at the end of the show. These colors are really made for mixing and how they interact. So this pictorial style doesn't really harness that. We're doing the mixing of the colors over here, and then we're transferring that over here. So I think that what I learned from using these just now is that I want to get the volatility and alchemy, honestly, of them interacting, because that's the interesting part, onto the page. So I think that is what we'll do next week. I'll get a bigger piece of paper, we'll get the fat brushes, and we'll just go in hard on using these fast and loose and see what we can make happen. That'll be chill. All right, I'll see if there's any questions that I want to answer. Then we'll wrap it up. I'm moving the palette just because then you can actually see what the painting looks like, and we don't have all the visual noise around. This was a really solid one. We'll talk about that right before we wrap it up. But let's see. Is anyone asking me anything interesting? RKD said, any advice on how to read theology, either books or things to keep in mind? Finding a bit of a slog. I like hearing and reading people talk about it, but reading it myself is a struggle. Oh, that's an interesting question, man. Well, yeah, I mean, for me, what's been the most helpful in terms of that is pairing, like for me, it's actually interesting to ask that because I was thinking about that today. This is a perfect note for us to end on also. Is that for me, I always pair it with like the historical situation that it's enmeshed in. So, you know, I hit the Protestant Reformation really hard. So, you know, I would read like stuff about the history of it and listen to talks about the history of it, and then I would poke into the actual writings themselves. And I feel like that makes it a lot easier in a way, because then the ideas that you're reading are hooked into what you just learned about the history of it in a way. But for me, I mean, I don't know. The thing is, I don't know what you mean by slog. You know, it's like ambiguous. Wait, did you say slog? Yeah. You know, it depends on like what issue you're having. Like maybe it's just boring or something. But for me, I really like immerse myself in like a particular period. So like when I was doing the Protestant Reformation stuff, which I probably will hit again soon, you know, it's like I can take the dog for a walk. I'm listening to a podcast about, you know, Martin Luther, and then I come home while I'm working, I have another podcast on about the Reformation, and then, you know, so it's like I really like immerse myself in people talking about it and go totally as hard as I can on the whole zoomed out view. And then if I jump in and read like one or two or three things, it's like hooked into this larger framework. Because for me, I have a really big issue, I'm sure other people do also, but like if you just pick up like something like Thomas Aquinas, that's something I tried to pick up a while ago. If you just pick it up and you're like, oh, you know, I'll read this for an hour before bed, you know, there's like so much context that you're missing that for me, the only way that I can do it is the way I just described. I have to like zoom in and hit everything I can find about a particular topic and totally enmesh myself in it. And then from there, I work forwards and backwards. So the Protestant Reformation stuff was tight because it's like a nice clean break. You can start, I mean, I don't know what you're trying to read about. It's just a good example. You can start with like Martin Luther, and then there's a step forward, like, oh, then you go to Calvin, and then you can go to like, oh, well then, oh, now all this Anglican and English stuff makes sense. Now I can see why England has this whole situation. And then, oh, Calvin's Geneva. Oh, well now the connections between these things are starting to make sense. And then once I sort of got that whole picture together, I ported it over to America. And then you're like, oh, the Puritans, that's why they're, you know, like this, you know. I have a few books that are like samplers of different writing and stuff like that, but it's honestly nothing I could recommend in particular because I just find them at like thrift stores, and you can find a lot of it online. But that's kind of my answer, honestly, is I feel like you have to, well, I don't know if you have to, the way my brain works, you kind of have to immerse yourself in the whole zoomed out picture and then put the writing into it. And someone asked Mustard Pink 83, any podcast you'd recommend? Honestly, not necessarily, just because I dive in and get a ton out of them and then I leave them. So like on Spotify, I'll literally just search for like let's say I was doing the Martin Luther thing on Spotify, I'll literally just search for like Martin Luther, whatever the first thing that comes up is, I'll listen to it while I'm walking the dog. I listened to almost all the episodes of this podcast called the Reformation Podcast that I found on Spotify. I was working at this supermarket and I just listened to the whole thing while I was like cleaning these like big machines and stuff like that. That was a pretty good one. I mean, I really got a lot out of it. I really like that one just because it's like a clean view into the Reformation. But honestly, I just search for stuff and listen to whatever. I would recommend Ryan Reeves. So I would recommend that, actually. I thought it was pretty cool. And I got a lot out of it. It was a good basis for my reading at that time. It's called the Reformation Podcast. I found it on Spotify. And I would also recommend this thing called Ryan Reeves. This guy named Ryan Reeves on YouTube. He has a series of lectures that go through all of church history, and I've used that a lot because he has literally everything from like pre-church to like Pentecostalism. So I've used that as like a basis to like jump in and be like, oh, who are the main players here? Where should I jump in here? I mean, people hate these books. I will show them on the stream, but people really don't like them and they think they're really bad. And some of them are kind of bad, honestly. But I get a lot of intro books. I mean, people like I don't know if people online are just fronting, like, oh, you read those intro books, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I do, and I did. That's kind of how I start out. I don't know if you guys have seen these like very short introduction books. They're like this. They look like this. Don't buy all these. It's kind of expensive buying all these, and it's kind of not really worth it. But they have like an intro to like different topics. So I've used these. The Anglicanism one is really bad. Don't get this one. This one's bad. The other ones were good. The Anglican one is not good. So I've used these as like, okay, I want to get offline and start hitting some stuff, but I don't know what book to get exactly. So I'm not even really recommending them necessarily, but don't be afraid to like look up like they actually the Catholicism one is not good either. Don't get this book. This is not good. Don't get this one. But just in general, yeah, I hit a lot of intro books and survey books and things like that. And I mean, I don't know, when I post about it online, I mean, some of these books are bad. So like, so people say they're bad, fine. But like, you know, if I post like, oh, I'm reading this book, it's like an introduction to the ideas of Augustine or something, people will be like, why don't you just read Augustine? Why don't you? And I'm like, because there's like context that I'm missing, dude. I'm not in like a university class. Sorry, I'm in like my room by myself. So anyway, that'll be my kind of large scale recommendation. I always pair it with the history as my short version of answering that, and I feel like that really grounds me in the whole situation. Anyway, it's about that time for us to wrap this up. This came out really dope. I like the symbolism, you know, the winter bear bleeding out to make the spring, gnome's dream, thread, voodoo doll, piercing, rebirth. I'm not going to explicate it. We can figure it out or not. Anyway, though, thanks for coming through. It was really fun. I really look forward to doing this every week. Thank you for being here. Thanks for partaking of the vibe. We got a lot of dope art coming out soon. Honestly, I'm not trying to hype it up, but I'm really amped. So stay tuned for that. And otherwise, you guys know the deal. Thanks for coming through. And I will see you guys on the internet where we all hang out together. Please have a great night. And eventually I'm going to get an outro. I have an Irish flute song I want to use as the outro. But it's not here, so I'm pushing the button. And I'll catch you guys. Gotta get a satisfying snap.